Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I thought I'd give you a quick take on yesterday's Springbok game against Argentina. The 1-point win for the Springboks, which didn't look that impressive, to be very honest. And to be honest, if they play rugby like that, they're going to come back from the World Cup very, very quickly. I suppose the good thing is they won, and it's always better to learn from these things while you're winning. But saying that, this wasn't the best Boks performance. Sloppy is, I think, the best word. I used that in my match report yesterday. But let's have a look at it. Look at what they did well and what they did wrong and badly, and where they can improve, and give you a bit of analysis of the stats from the game, and take it from there. So thanks for watching this. And then hopefully I can add some value. Okay, the first thing is the expectation. I think South African fans expect the Springboks to beat Argentina, especially on the high felt. So we've got a good record in South Africa against them. But I think we have to give the Los Pumas credit. They were exceptionally well coached. They exceptionally played to their strengths, and they upset the Boks rhythm and game plan. And their discipline was excellent compared to the Springboks on Saturday. They raised expectations. They carried on from where they did against Australia 2 weeks earlier. But I think the Boks have got some areas of concern, and I think it's good that they highlighted now rather than the World Cup. But saying that, it didn't make it much easier watching for us all yesterday. I suppose one of the first things to mention is the fact that the Boks, we expected the backline to dominate. I think, in a way, I think that the early hit on Grant Williams, and so glad he's okay, really sort of almost upset the Boks rhythm. And in more ways than one, not only did it sort of stun them, I think the fact that the ref did nothing about it was one of the reasons. I'm going to do a separate video on that incident, so you please keep an eye out for that. But secondly, it's just the way they wanted to play with Marnie and Grant. They had a plan of sort of playing very nippy rugby from Grant sniping from the base, and the Boks trying to get that backline going as such. And they tried for a lot of the game, but the Pumas were exceptionally good with that. I think in the air, the Boks weren't very good. Again, they struggled under the high ball. I know it's something they're trying to fix, but teams are obviously picking up on this and trying to exploit that weakness. And there were a lot of basic errors, and especially in the first half, there was a lot of sort of knock-ons and drop balls and things like that, and really uncharacteristic, especially at Ellis Park. To think of a Springbok side doing stuff like that. It hampered the Boks, and they were their own worst enemies at times. They really could have done a lot better. It hampered the Boks because they really wanted to play a certain style. They had obviously a game plan coming into this, and they really wanted their team to do to take another step forward. But I'm not sure they quite did. I think if anything, it probably showed a couple of the weaknesses that the Boks had. And with a World Cup going to be a World Cup of inches and very close, especially in their half of the draw, they're going to have to do a lot better. And there's a lot of work ahead for them. In the words of one management member that I bumped into as I was walking out the stadium, we played cock. I think it probably sums up everything about that game. The Boks aren't happy with their performance, and I think it showed. There's a lot they can fix, and there's a lot they can rectify. But you also got to wonder how much certain the way the things were, the breakdown was reffed, the way the scrums were reffed. The Boks didn't really get the upper hand, and how that sort of almost also hampered them as well. But saying that, they've got to be better than that. That's the bottom line. World Cup, everything's going to go your way, and you're going to need to find ways of overcoming that. I think part of the problem is there's this expectation that we should beat Argentina well every single time. That may be the case, and over the years the Boks have done pretty well in South Africa, especially against Argentina. But saying that, Argentina are a very good side. They played extremely well. If you think they're playing at altitude, they made the trip across from Australia to face the Boks. There's so many factors in that sort of played, and if they were definitely the team that came out this much happier than the Boks, if I put it that way. If anything, this has placed a lot more pressure on the Springboks going to Buenos Aires this week, whereas Argentina will probably be sort of chomping at the bit to get back at the Boks because they feel they probably missed an opportunity here. And yes, I mean, at the end of the day, that last 10 minutes made the scoreline look a lot closer. But Argentina probably dominated that second half. I think in the end they had 59% possession, and that says a lot against the Springbok team at Ellis Park. And I think that showed just how bad the Boks were. We're going to go through the stats now, and we'll go through some bit more detail. But I think there's a lot of work on for the Boks. So let's have a look at those stats now, and just have a look at where the Boks did well and where they did badly, and just see how that affected them. The first stat we're going to look at is the action areas, the possession stat. Now, if you look at that, the possession over there, 59% to Argentina. That tells a tale, and they really dominated, especially that second half, and probably should have got a lot more out of it. The territory stakes as well, you can see a lot more of the territory stakes in the areas. Those dark green areas are the areas that Argentina dominated, and in the 22, they were now 22, a lot more than we were, and there was a lot more going on in their game in the right parts of the field than there was for the Springboks. Now we're looking at general play stats here. And you look, obviously, the Boks outscored the Argentinians 3-2. Their meters carried was a lot more than the Argentinians. They stopped them a lot of the times before they got over the advantage line. And obviously, but if you look at the third stat, Argentina made a lot more carries than the Boks. That comes down to the possession they had. And fair enough, it shows how good the Boks defensive effort was. But it also shows how much possession they had, and you don't expect that to happen at Ellis Park. The fourth stat, defenders beaten. With that many carries, you expect that to happen as well. Clean breaks, pretty much the same. Shows that where the Boks were trying to play, they did get more clean breaks than the Argentinians. Passes, well, that's again symptomatic of possession again. Offloads, you could see the Argentinians trying to play a game, but the Boks are stopping them. I think the big thing there, that's that to me, is turnovers conceded. And that just shows you how sloppy the Boks were when they had possession. And it also played into Argentina's hands. It allowed them to keep the ball for longer periods of time. It allowed them to dominate possession. And every time the Boks tried to, especially in that first half, they sort of made mistakes. They dropped balls, they dropped passes. It was uncharacteristic mistakes, and that all contributed to the possession that Argentina had. The next stat we're going to look at is defense, and it just shows you how much tackling the Boks had to do without much of the ball. 170 tackles is massive for a game. With that, do come missed tackles, 25. I don't think it's missed tackles in that sounds bad, but when you're making 170, the stats are pretty. Those turnovers won were crucial. A number of them, those 5 turnovers won, were on the Boks line when they're under severe pressure, and really saved probably possible tries. So, I'd say it was a massive defensive effort by them, and probably what got them through the game. This is, of course, a stat that everybody looks at always, the penalties conceded. Obviously, the under 10 is always the point that the Boks really want to have, or any team wants to have. But saying that under 10 only counts, if you can get it even less than that, if you can get it down to 5, you're doing exceptionally well. 12 is too many, and they'll say that first. And many of those penalties were penalty after penalty after penalty, which sort of put them back and stunted their momentum a lot of the time and gave momentum to Argentina. So, the yellow card, well, that was one of those things that happened in the game. I think it was a bit unnecessary, and it did allow Argentina to close the gap on the scoreboard. But it was really not the best disciplinary performance by the Springbok standards, and I think they'll be the first ones to admit that. I think the next stat that's very important to look at, when we talk about that defensive performance, and we look at that, the tackles made by players there. If you look, that's the amount of tackles that were made by players. The second column is the missed tackles. Now, a missed tackle here and there it happens in games. It's not that big a deal as long as it's not massive. But if you look at, let's start at the back line there. Cheslin Colby made 8. Jesse Krill made 10, and it was an exceptional defensive performance by Jesse. I know a lot of people give him stick, but he really marshals that backline defense well. David De Lende made 9. Curtly Orenson made 3, but one of them was a try-saving tackle. Cheslin made a couple of those as well. And then if you look at the forwards, Peter Steph du Toit, what an engine, 20 tackles. Okay, he missed 5, but that's when a player's making 20 tackles, he's everywhere. Even Etzebeth, 16 tackles. That's really, really something you want to see from the guys. Even Malcolm Marks, 9 tackles. Marvin Uri, Marco van Staan, 7. Dwayne Vermeulen, 9. Some real big defensive efforts there from players, and something that really the Boks will take into account going forward. And when you add to that, this is the defensive performance of the bench, the 5 3 bench and not the 6-2 bomb squad that we're used to. You look at that, Kwagga Smith when he came on, and he came on rather late in the game, 12 tackles in, I think it was about 15 minutes. That tells a lot. Of course, Faf de Klerk made 11. He was really brave a lot of the time, but he was on for the whole game. And if you look at the performances of the other guys as well, Trevor Neakani made 8, Vincent Koch made 8, Bongi made 6. And Lukanya Arm made 2 coming on there late as well. But Kwagga's performance really something that stood out amongst the defensive effort. Now, with that in mind, I think one of the things you've seen the stats now. I think we got to ask who put their hands up, who didn't. I think Malcolm Marx and Stephen Kitsoff over the ball saved the Boks a number of times on their line. Definitely deserved plaudits. They both were exceptional. I thought Peter Steff de Toy played well. I thought Dwayne played well. Eben Etzebeth was there goes the load shedding. Eben Etzebeth was my man of the match as well. I thought Marnie Lebok played well. The 2 wingers tried valiantly. In the midfield, they tried very well hard as well. Jesse Krill was exceptional in defence, and I think Damien Delenda scoring a try as part of the forwards will give him some bragging rights for weeks to come. So where does this leave the Boks? A couple of weeks out from the World Cup squad announcement, and with about 6 weeks out from the World Cup tournament itself. Well, first of all, I think it's definitely not the time to panic. That's the first thing I could say. Sorry if there's noises in the background. There's dogs snoring here behind me. It's making it a bit difficult to do this video. But I think part of the thing is, they know where they are. I think this was a setback. I don't think that anybody's going to say this was a good thing. But they comes down to a couple of minutes where in Auckland where they did badly, and they won this game like they should, even though they weren't very good. There's work-ons to go on, but if the Boks carry on like this, if they perform like this in the World Cup, they could easily find themselves on a plane home very quickly in the tournament. And that's a game against Scotland. That's the one. You got the first one you got to get past. And Scotland are no slouches. And if the Boks play like this, I think Scotland will fancy their chances as well. The part of the problem is they've been spreading the load amongst the players through the last couple of weeks. You've been seeing a lot of players get game time and combinations not really have time to settle. Not sure how much that had goes into it. You expected a better performance from a lot of the guys. But Argentina look a much more settled squad. They look like a squad that can go into the World Cup as they are at the moment. And probably in their half of the group, a team like England really has to watch out for them. I think they'll fancy their chances there in the World Cup. To me, this Bok performance is probably the worst of the 3 we had at the moment. Even though in Auckland they had 17 terrible minutes or 18 terrible minutes, you still got the sense they came back in those last 60 minutes and they played a lot better. Whereas in this one, they're just under the pump the whole time, and their discipline kept putting them on the back foot, and stupid mistakes. I mean, mistakes we're not used to seeing Bok teams do. But that comes from pressure, and that was exceptional the way the Argentinians put the Boks under pressure. So where to from here for the Boks at the moment? Well, it's it's a good question. I think they're going to go through they're going to give all the fringe players a go in Buenos Aires. They're going to let them have a chance to play, and then they're going to look at obviously picking the best team out of that. I think they know what they've got in their combinations, but I think there are big areas of concern. And I think one of the things Jacques Nienaber said last night was that Argentina controlled the game exceptionally well between the two. The middle part of the field, between the middle line and the 22 on either side, and you can make teams' life very difficult by the way you play. But he wasn't sure they're going to win the World Cup like that. A team would win the World Cup, and I think you can understand it. First of all, listen to what he has to say here, and
ek definitief in terme van die kicking game dink ek dink Argentinië het die kan ek maar sê die spel tussen die 2 10 meters het hulle baie goed hanteer in terme van ek sal sê hulle so half hulle gee die bal, gee dit diep in jou halfgebied en wag vir jou om 'n fout te maak, jy weet. So dis 'n game wat ons ook kan speel. Ons het dit gespeel. As jy dink Wallis 2019, ons is baie gemaklik om dit te speel. Maar ek is nie 100% seker of dit die wêreldbeker sal wen nie. But we had to grind it out, and we had to grind the win out, which I'm I'm glad for. You know, to get to be put under pressure like this. You're probably going to experience similar situations like this in a World Cup, and to manage it like the way I felt the players did at the end with the yellow card, and the amount of attitude the players had in defence, I thought that was outstanding. I thought the amount of attitude they had in their ball carries was outstanding. And yes, there was a couple of mistakes and maybe tactical or technical stuff that we can fix. But for me, I think that's the easy fix. You know, it's a tactical adjustment that you make in your game. But the making it personal and making the collisions personal in terms on attack and your ball carries in defence, that comes from and that I was incredibly proud of.
So in a way, I do agree with him. I think, while knockout rugby will be won in the inches, I think you do need to have something a bit extra if you're going to beat teams like Ireland and France in this World Cup, and New Zealand. You're going to have something that's going to give you that edge. And I think the Boks are trying to develop their wide game, but they just, I suppose, don't have enough time at the moment. I suppose they back themselves in those moments to make the right decisions, and they feel they've got enough X-factor players that can make those decisions in the right moments. I think the one thing this test showed is Manie Libbok is definitely growing in the role. He's becoming that second 10. He just needs time in the position. He needs the backing. And it's such a pity he didn't get to play with Grant Williams there, because I think we were all looking forward to seeing that. Well, they're now on a flight to Buenos Aires. I think there's some players who probably did themselves a little bit of a disservice with their game. I think there's some questions that are definitely going to have to be asked after this game. And some players who now have the opportunity to play themselves in Buenos Aires. I think this team is far from settled at the moment. I think that probably about 80% of it is settled, but there's still a couple of fringe positions. And I'll be doing a video about that later, or maybe tomorrow, just looking at the team going to Buenos Aires and their chances of making the World Cup squad. The point is, this was not a good performance. I don't think anybody can sort of say it was. I think the fact they won is good, but yeah, I think they were embarrassed, and there was a lot of questions about a lot of areas of their games that was exposed by the Pumas. Defensively they were sound, and that probably saved them at the end of the day. And I know some people say, well, the Pumas never looked like they're going to win, but geez, they were within a head breadth. If you think that last try of Manie Libbok where Faf picked up the drop ball and ran the length, if they had scored there and the Boks didn't, I mean, it was a different game. I suppose there'd be a lot of what ifs. They won the game, and that's the main thing. But yeah, if you had to give this Boks performance mark at 10, I'd say probably 5. This wasn't. It was good enough to win. It wasn't good enough to win you a World Cup, and I think that's the bottom line. A lot of introspection needed, a lot of work, and I know the team's going to be doing a lot of hard work this week as well. Argentina will be waiting for them, and yeah, expect just as fiery encounter where the Boks will definitely be underdogs in that game. So thanks for watching. Have a look. Let me know what you thought. Where did you think the Boks went wrong? Of course, I've seen some comments from guys saying, the World Cup's gone and the Boks are going backwards and etc. We tend to overreact in games. I think it's still a victory for the Springboks, and I think at the end of the day, that's what counts for them at the day. But there's lots of work-ons, there's lots of things that happen, and if there was a game that was going to expose those flaws, we saw them now, and the Boks have the time to rectify it. Luckily, it's not the World Cup yet, but let me know what you think as well, where you thought they went wrong, and where they can improve. Anyway, leave the comments below. I'll chat to you soon in another video, but look out for the video on the Grant Williams incident. It's coming up soon. Cheers.